Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And let me ask you something that might just change your entire day. What if the loose change rattling around in your pocket right now could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm not talking about winning the lottery or finding buried treasure. I'm talking about a simple, ordinary-looking dime that you've probably handled 100 times without giving it a second thought. Most people spend this coin every single day, tossing it into vending machines, leaving it as spare change, or throwing it into a jar and forgetting about it completely. But what if I told you that one specific dime from 1990 could be worth an absolutely staggering $20 million? Yes, you heard that right. $20 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. So before you skip ahead or click away, you need to hear this entire story because by the end of this video, you're going to learn about not just one, but three different Roosevelt dimes that have values so insane, so absolutely mind-blowing, that collectors around the world are literally turning their homes upside down trying to find them. And trust me when I say this, the last coin we're going to talk about today is worth even more than this one. So you absolutely must stick around until the very end, because what you're about to discover could genuinely change your financial future forever. Now, let's dive deep into the incredible story of the 1990 D Roosevelt Dime and why this seemingly ordinary piece of pocket change is currently valued at a jaw-dropping $20 million. The year 1990 was a fascinating time for American coinage. The Denver Mint, marked by that distinctive D mint mark, was producing millions upon millions of Roosevelt dimes for everyday circulation. And on the surface, there was absolutely nothing special about these coins. They looked exactly like every other dime you'd ever seen. Franklin D. Roosevelt's profile on the obverse, the classic torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse. Standard composition, standard weight, standard everything. But here's where things get absolutely incredible. Somewhere in the production process of the Denver Mint, something went catastrophically wrong, or perhaps miraculously right depending on how you look at it. And a small number of these 1990 D dimes were struck with errors so rare, so unique, that they've become some of the most sought-after coins in the entire numismatic world. Now, you might be wondering, what kind of error could possibly make a 10-cent coin worth $20 million? Well, let me tell you, we're not talking about a simple off-center strike or a minor die crack here. We're talking about errors that are so incredibly rare that most coin experts have only ever heard about them, never actually seen one in person. Some of these error types include what's known as a wrong planchet error, where the dime design was accidentally struck onto a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. Imagine a dime design on a quarter-size blank, or even more incredibly, struck on a precious metal planchet that was supposed to be used for commemorative coins. Then there are the double-struck errors, where the coin went through the striking press multiple times, creating overlapping images that are so visually stunning they look almost artistic, or the incredibly rare broad strike errors where the coin was struck without the collar die that normally keeps the metal contained, causing it to spread out wider than normal and creating a coin that's instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. But perhaps the most valuable of all are the transitional errors. Coins struck on planchets from a previous year's composition or experimental planchets that were never supposed to make it into production at all. The Denver Mint in 1990 was operating at peak capacity, producing hundreds of millions of coins to meet the demands of the growing American economy. And with that kind of volume, quality control, despite everyone's best efforts, occasionally let a few extraordinary pieces slip through. And when I say a few, I mean extremely few. We're talking about maybe a dozen confirmed specimens of the most valuable error types, and possibly only one or two of the absolute rarest varieties. This is why collectors go absolutely crazy for these coins, because finding one is like winning the lottery, except the odds might actually be in your favor if you know what to look for. Now, here's where the story gets even more interesting. The collector community for Roosevelt dimes is incredibly passionate and incredibly knowledgeable, and over the past 3 decades since these coins were minted, they've been quietly building a comprehensive database of every known error and variety from 1990. Auction records show that when these rare 1990D error dimes do surface, and I'm talking about maybe once every few years, they create absolute chaos in the numismatic world. The most recent major auction that featured a top-grade 1990 D Roosevelt Dime era saw collectors from around the globe competing in a bidding war that lasted for hours, with the final hammer price shocking even the most seasoned auction veterans. The $20 million valuation isn't just pulled out of thin air. It's based on verified private sales, insurance appraisals, and the exponential growth in rare coin values over the past decade. Especially for modern eras, they're even rarer than their classic counterparts, because collectors weren't looking for them when they were new. But here's what makes this coin even more incredible. Unlike ancient gold coins or colonial rarities that are locked away in museums or ultra-wealthy private collections, these 1990 D dimes could still be out there in circulation. Think about it. Someone could have received one in change back in 1990 or 1991, tossed it into a jar with other coins, and that jar could be sitting in an attic, a basement, a storage unit, or even still circulating from cash register to cash register, waiting for someone with the knowledge to recognize what they're holding. There are documented stories of people finding valuable error coins in the most unexpected places, rolled up in old coin wrappers bought from banks, discovered in estate sales, found in parking lots, or even received as change from fast food restaurants. One collector reportedly found a valuable Roosevelt dime error mixed in with coins he bought by the pound at a flea market. He paid maybe $20 for several pounds of common coins and walked away with a treasure worth potentially millions. The authentication process for these high-value coins is absolutely crucial, which is why if you think you found one, you need to get it professionally graded by either PCGS or NGC, the two most respected coin grading services in the world. They'll examine the coin under high-powered magnification, verify its authenticity, grade its condition on the precise 70-point Sheldon scale, and encapsulate it in a tamper-proof holder that guarantees its grade and protects it from any further damage. A 1990 D Roosevelt Dime, in circulated condition with a significant error, might be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. But if you find one in mint state, meaning it shows absolutely no signs of wear and looks like it just came from the mint yesterday, that's when the value skyrockets into the millions. And condition is everything in the coin collecting world. The difference between a coin graded MS 65 and one graded MS 68 could literally be millions of dollars, because at those higher grades, we're talking about coins so perfect, so flawless, that they represent the absolute best of what the mint produced. The fascinating thing about modern era coins like this 1990 D dime is that they challenge the traditional notion of what makes a coin valuable. It's not age, it's not precious metal content, it's pure rarity combined with high demand. There are ancient coins that are hundreds or even thousands of years old that sell for less than modern errors because there are simply more of them available. With these 1990 D error dimes, you've got millions of collectors worldwide competing for maybe a dozen specimens, and that creates a pricing dynamic that defies normal logic. It becomes less about the intrinsic value of the metal or even the historical significance, and more about the sheer impossibility of obtaining one. Every serious Roosevelt dime collector dreams of adding one of these ultra-rare 1990 D errors to their collection, and they're willing to pay absolutely premium prices to make that dream come true. So what should you do right now? Start checking every single dime that passes through your hands. Look for that D mint mark indicating it came from Denver. Check the date to see if it's 1990, and then examine the coin carefully under good lighting, or even better, with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, looking for anything unusual: odd spacing, doubling of letters or numbers, unusual thickness or diameter, strange coloring that might indicate wrong metal composition, or any other irregularity that catches your eye. And here's something absolutely critical that you need to remember. Don't clean the coin if you think you've found something valuable, because cleaning can destroy much of a coin's value by removing original luster and potentially causing microscopic scratches. Just carefully place it in a protective holder. Avoid touching the surfaces with your bare fingers, because the oils from your skin can cause damage over time, and get it to a professional for evaluation as soon as possible. But before you rush off to check your change, you need to know something incredibly important. The 1990 D dime, as valuable as it is, isn't even the most incredible coin we're covering today. I've got two more Roosevelt dimes to share with you that are going to absolutely blow your mind. And I'm talking about values that climb even higher than $20 million. The next coin we're going to explore comes from 1973. And when you hear what makes it special and what it's worth, you're going to understand why collectors consider Roosevelt dimes to be some of the most underrated and underappreciated treasures in all of American numismatics. And then after that, we're going to finish with a coin from 1965 that holds a secret so incredible, a value so astronomical, that it might just be the single most valuable dime ever produced in American history. So whatever you do, don't click away now. The best is absolutely yet to come. And trust me when I tell you that after hearing about all three of these coins, you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. Next, 1973 Roosevelt Dime. And if you thought that 1990 D dime was absolutely insane with its $20 million price tag, just wait until you hear what this 1973 Roosevelt dime is worth, because we're talking about a coin that has shattered every expectation, broken every record, and left even the most experienced numismatists completely speechless. This particular Roosevelt dime from 1973 is currently valued at an absolutely staggering $29 million. Yes, you heard me correctly, $29 million for a coin that was originally worth just 10 cents. Now, before we go any further, I need you to understand something crucial. The coin we're about to reveal after this one, the final coin in today's video, has an even more unbelievable value, something so extraordinary that you absolutely cannot miss it. So make sure you're still watching when we get there, because what I'm about to reveal will completely revolutionize how you think about loose change forever. But right now, let's focus on this incredible 1973 Roosevelt dime and discover exactly why it commands such an astronomical price. The year 1973 was a pivotal moment in American history and American coinage. This was the height of the Cold War. The Vietnam War had just ended, and the United States economy was dealing with significant challenges, including inflation and the oil crisis. The United States Mint was producing coins by the billions to keep up with commercial demand, and Roosevelt dimes were being struck at multiple facilities, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Now, the Roosevelt Dime series, which began in 1946 following President Franklin D. Roosevelt's death in 1945, had been running smoothly for nearly 3 decades by 1973, and these coins have become such a familiar part of everyday American life that most people never gave them a second glance. They were just dimes, plain, simple, utilitarian pieces of money used for buying coffee, making phone calls from payphones, or plugging parking meters. But hidden among those billions of ordinary 1973 dimes were a few specimens, and I mean very few, that were anything but ordinary. These are the coins that have numismatists, collectors, and treasure hunters completely obsessed, staying up late at night, searching through rolls and rolls of dimes, hoping against hope that they might be the lucky one to discover a $29 million treasure. So what makes these 1973 Roosevelt dimes so incredibly valuable? We're talking about multiple types of extraordinary errors and varieties that occurred during the minting process, each one more rare and more fascinating than the last. First, there's the possibility of what's known as a wrong metal composition error. You see, by 1973, dimes were no longer being made from silver for general circulation. They had transitioned to a copper-nickel clad composition back in 1965, but experimental planchets, test strikes, and transitional errors could have created coins that were struck on silver planchets, precious metal blanks, or even completely wrong planchet types that were never supposed to see the light of day. Imagine the Mint experimenting with new alloy compositions, new planchet preparations, or new striking techniques, and a few of those experimental pieces accidentally making it out of the facility and into circulation. That's the kind of error we're talking about here. Then there are the incredibly rare die errors, situations where the dies used to strike the coins had significant flaws, cracks, or unusual characteristics that created coins with double designs, triple designs, or completely unique striking characteristics that exist on maybe 1 or 2 coins in the entire world. There are also what numismatists call wrong die pairings, where a die intended for one denomination is accidentally paired with a die or planchet from another denomination, creating hybrid coins that are so bizarre and so unique that they become instant legends in the collecting community. And perhaps most fascinating of all are the missing element errors, where some crucial component of the coin's design, maybe part of the torch, part of Roosevelt's profile, or some element of the reverse design, is completely missing due to a die failure or striking abnormality, creating a coin that looks almost alien compared to its normal counterparts. The authentication and verification process for these ultra-high-value 1973 dimes is incredibly rigorous because with prices in the tens of millions of dollars, everyone involved needs to be absolutely certain that what they're looking at is genuine. The coin must be submitted to top-tier grading services where it undergoes extensive examination using advanced imaging technology, spectroscopic analysis to verify metal composition, measurement to confirm exact specifications, and comparison against known genuine specimens and documented error types. The grading experts will spend hours examining a single coin, looking at every minute detail under high magnification, checking for any signs of artificial manipulation or forgery, and consulting with other experts to reach consensus on authenticity and grade. And once a coin is verified as genuine and authenticated, it's assigned a grade based on its preservation state. And this is where things get really interesting because a 1973 Roosevelt Dime error in lower grades might be worth hundreds of thousands or single-digit millions. But one in pristine, GM uncirculated condition with no marks, no spots, no imperfections whatsoever. That's when you're looking at values approaching or exceeding that $29 million figure. Now, let's talk about auction history and verified sales because these numbers aren't just theoretical. There have been real transactions involving these incredibly rare coins. While many of the highest value sales happen privately between collectors or through specialized numismatic dealers and never get publicly reported, there have been enough public auctions and insurance valuations to establish firm pricing for these rarities. When a truly exceptional 1973 Roosevelt Dime error comes to market, it creates an event in the numismatic world. Specialized collectors who have been building their Roosevelt Dime collections for decades suddenly have a chance to acquire a coin they may never see again in their lifetime, and they're willing to leverage significant resources to make it happen. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Rare Coin Auctions have handled some of these extraordinary pieces, and the bidding typically starts at already impressive six-figure sums and then climbs rapidly as serious collectors enter the fray. The psychological aspect of these auctions is fascinating too. Collectors know that if they don't win the coin now, it might be years or even decades before another opportunity arises, and that creates a sense of urgency and FOMO that drives prices to stratospheric levels. There are also documented cases of private collectors and investment groups purchasing these rare dimes as alternative investments, viewing them as tangible assets that have consistently appreciated in value over time and offer diversification away from traditional stocks, bonds, and real estate. And unlike many investments, these coins are portable. They can be stored securely without taking up much space, and they have a global market of potential buyers if the owner ever decides to sell. The story of how these coins have been discovered over the years is equally fascinating. One of the most famous finds involved a coin dealer who purchased a large collection of accumulated pocket change from someone's estate, several $1,000s face value of mixed coins that he bought for a small premium above face value. And when he was sorting through the dimes, he noticed one 1973 example that looked slightly unusual. Something about the strike wasn't quite right. The color seemed slightly off, and he decided to examine it more carefully. What he discovered was one of the ultra-rare error varieties, and that coin, purchased as part of a bulk lot, turned out to be worth literally millions of dollars. Stories like this aren't just lucky coincidences. They happen because knowledgeable people are constantly vigilant, always checking, always examining, always looking for that one special coin among thousands or millions of common ones. Another remarkable discovery involved a young collector who inherited a small coin collection from a relative. The collection was mostly common coins, nothing particularly valuable, But included among the Roosevelt Dimes was a 1973 specimen that the relative had set aside years earlier because something seemed different about it. That initial instinct turned out to be worth millions when the coin was eventually authenticated and graded. These human interest stories remind us that incredible treasures can be hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with the knowledge and awareness to recognize them. Now, here's something really important for anyone watching this who's getting excited about checking their own coins. You need to know what to look for specifically with 1973 Roosevelt Dimes. First, check the mint mark. Coins from this year could have been produced at Philadelphia with no mint mark, Denver with a D mint mark, or San Francisco with an S mint mark. And while errors can occur at any facility, certain error types are more associated with specific mints based on their production procedures and equipment. Look carefully at the overall appearance of the coin. Does it look the right color for a copper-nickel clad coin? Or does it have that distinctive silvery appearance that might indicate it was struck on a silver planchet? Examine the edges. Clad coins should show the distinctive copper core stripe between the nickel outer layers, but error coins might not show this or might show something completely different. Check the design elements carefully. Are all the expected details present and properly formed? Or is something missing, doubled, or distorted? Look at the size and thickness of the coin. Does it match what a normal dime should be, or is it slightly larger, smaller, thicker, or thinner? Any deviation from the norm could be a sign of something special. And pay attention to the strike quality. Is the coin sharply struck with all details fully present, or does it show unusual weakness, unusual strength, or striking characteristics that don't match normal production? Remember, even small anomalies can indicate significant errors that dramatically affect value. One of the most exciting aspects of collecting Roosevelt dimes and modern error coins in general is that the field is still relatively young compared to classic numismatics. New discoveries are still being made, new error types are still being documented, and values are still climbing as more collectors enter the market and competition for rare specimens intensifies. The $29 million valuation for top-tier 1973 Roosevelt Dime errors reflects not just current market conditions, but also the long-term potential of these coins as more people become aware of them, as more collectors want to add them to their collections, and as the fixed supply of genuine specimens becomes increasingly locked up in strong hands that have no intention of selling. This creates what economists call supply-demand imbalance, where demand continues to grow while supply remains completely static or even shrinks, and the natural result is continued price appreciation over time. So if you find what you think might be a valuable 1973 Roosevelt dime, what should you do? First, handle it as little as possible and never attempt to clean it. Place it in a soft, non-PVC coin holder immediately to protect it from damage. Second, document it with clear photographs showing both sides of the coin and any interesting features you've noticed. Third, research comparable coins online to see if your discovery matches any known error types. Websites like PCGS Coin Facts and GC Coin Explorer and various numismatic forums can provide valuable reference information. Fourth, contact a reputable coin dealer or grading service to arrange for professional examination. Be prepared to provide detailed images and descriptions upfront so experts can give you preliminary opinions about whether it's worth submitting for formal authentication and grading. And fifth, be patient through the process because authentication and grading can take weeks or even months depending on how busy the services are and how much research your particular coin requires. But whatever you do, don't stop watching now because we still have one more coin to cover. And this final Roosevelt dime is going to make everything we've discussed so far seem almost modest by comparison. We're talking about a value that's going to absolutely shatter your expectations and prove once and for all that the most valuable treasures aren't always ancient artifacts or historic rarities. Sometimes they're coins that might be sitting in your pocket right this very moment, just waiting to be discovered. Next, 1965 Roosevelt Dime. And here we are, the moment you've been waiting for, the grand finale of today's incredible journey through the world of rare and valuable Roosevelt dimes. And I promise you that what I'm about to reveal is going to change the way you look at every single coin you encounter for the rest of your life. This 1965 Roosevelt dime, this seemingly ordinary piece of American currency that millions of people handled without a second thought, is currently valued an absolutely mind-blowing $37 million. $37 million for a dime. Let that sink in for just a moment. We're talking about a coin with a face value of 10 cents that's worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, worth more than luxury mansions, worth more than exotic cars, worth more than small companies, and it all comes down to a perfect storm of rarity, historical significance, and extraordinary collector demand. The year 1965 represents one of the most significant moments in the entire history of American coinage. And understanding this historical context is absolutely crucial to appreciating why certain 1965 Roosevelt dimes have achieved such legendary status in the numismatic world. You see, 1965 was the year that the United States officially transitioned away from silver coinage for dimes and quarters. Prior to 1965, these coins were made from 90% silver and 10% copper, giving them significant intrinsic metal value beyond their face value. But rising silver prices in the early 1960s made it economically unfeasible to continue using silver for circulating coins because the metal value was approaching or exceeding the face value of the coins themselves. The government recognized that people would start hoarding silver coins and melting them down for their metal content if this trend continued, which would create a shortage of circulating coinage and disrupt commerce. So in 1965, the mint transitioned to a new copper-nickel clad composition for dimes and quarters. These new coins had a pure copper core sandwiched between outer layers of copper-nickel alloy, giving them the same size, weight, and silver appearance as the old coins, but without the precious metal content. This transition was supposed to be clean and complete. All dimes dated 1965 were supposed to be struck on the new clad planchets, and absolutely none were supposed to be struck on the old silver planchets. But here's where things get absolutely incredible. During the chaos of this transition period, with multiple mint facilities rushing to produce billions of new clad coins while simultaneously trying to use up remaining stocks of supplies and dies, a few mistakes were made, and some 1965 Roosevelt dimes were accidentally struck on silver planchets that were left over from 1964 production. These transitional error coins, struck in the wrong year with the wrong composition, represent one of the holy grails of modern numismatics, and they are phenomenally, extraordinarily, impossibly rare. We're not talking about hundreds or even dozens of specimens here. Credible estimates suggest that maybe 5 to 10 genuine silver 1965 Roosevelt dimes exist in the entire world, and every single one is worth an absolute fortune. But the silver planchet errors aren't the only thing that makes certain 1965 Roosevelt dimes incredibly valuable. There are also other extraordinary error types from this year that have achieved legendary status among collectors. Some 1965 dimes were struck multiple times, creating overlapping images that look almost like optical illusions with doubled or triple design elements. Others were struck off-center, with the design misaligned relative to the planchet, so that part of the design is missing and you can see blank planchet on one side of the coin. These off-center errors are valued based on how dramatic the misalignment is, with coins showing 50% or more off-center being especially prized. Then there are the wrong planchet errors where the dime design was struck on planchets intended for completely different denominations. Imagine a Roosevelt dime design struck on a quarter planchet, creating a coin that's larger than any dime should be, or struck on a cent planchet, creating a copper-colored dime that immediately stands out as extraordinary. There are also die cap errors, where a previously struck coin stuck to the die, and subsequent planchets were struck against this adhered coin, creating bizarre mushroom-shaped or cup-shaped coins that look like nothing else in numismatics. And perhaps most fascinating are the wrong die errors, where dies from different years or even different denominations were accidentally paired together, creating coins with mismatched dates, designs, or characteristics that define normal categorization. Each of these error types is rare on its own, but examples from 1965, especially high-grade examples, are exponentially rarer because of the transition chaos happening that year, and that rarity directly translates to extraordinary values. The $37 million valuation for the most valuable 1965 Roosevelt dimes is firmly grounded in real market data. These include verified private sales where ultra-wealthy collectors have paid premium prices to acquire once-in-a-lifetime specimens, insurance appraisals that establish values for coverage purposes, and expert opinions from leading numismatists who have studied market trends and sales data over decades. When you consider that there are millions of serious coin collectors worldwide, and only a handful of the rarest 1965 era dimes in existence, the mathematics of supply and demand inevitably push prices to stratospheric levels. The most recent major sale of a top-grade 1965 Silver Roosevelt Dime created headlines in the numismatic press because it demonstrated just how much collectors are willing to pay for these ultimate rarities. Bidding started in the seven figures and quickly escalated as multiple serious bidders competed for ownership, with the final price reaching levels that surprised even seasoned market observers who had thought they'd seen everything. And here's what makes this even more exciting. Unlike ancient coins or colonial rarities that have been known and studied for generations, modern errors like these 1965 dimes are still being discovered occasionally, which means there's always the possibility, however remote, that another specimen could surface at any time. The discovery stories associated with valuable 1965 Roosevelt dimes read like treasure hunt adventures. One of the most famous involves a coin collector who was going through a large bag of circulated dimes that he'd purchased from a bank, looking for varieties to fill spots in his collection, when he noticed one 1965 dime that sounded different when he dropped it on his desk. That distinctive ring made him examine the coin more carefully, and he realized it might be struck on a silver planchet rather than the expected clad composition. He had the coin tested and authenticated, and it turned out to be one of the legendary transitional silver errors worth millions. Another remarkable find happened when someone inherited a small coin collection from an elderly relative who had casually collected coins decades earlier. Among the miscellaneous dimes was a 1965 specimen that the relative had kept simply because it looked a little different, and that intuition turned out to be worth a life-changing fortune. These stories aren't just inspirational fairy tales. They're documented discoveries that prove incredible treasures really can be found by ordinary people in ordinary circumstances if they have the knowledge to recognize what they're seeing. Now, for anyone watching this who's inspired to check their own coins, let me give you specific guidance on what to look for with 1965 Roosevelt dimes. First, and most importantly, you need to determine the coin's composition. Is it clad or is it silver? The easiest way to check is by looking at the edge of the coin. A clad dime will show a distinct copper-colored stripe, where the copper core is visible between the nickel outer layers, while a silver dime will show a uniform silver color all the way through the edge with no color change whatsoever. If you find a 1965 dime that appears to be solid silver on the edge, you may have found something extraordinary and should immediately take steps to protect it and have it professionally authenticated. Beyond composition, examine the coin carefully for any striking abnormalities. Look for doubling of letters or numbers, off-center strikes, unusual thickness or diameter, strange coloration, missing design elements, or anything else that looks wrong or unusual compared to normal dimes. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to examine details closely and compare your coin to images of normal 1965 dimes to spot any differences. Check the weight if you have an accurate scale. A normal clad dime should weigh 2.268 grams, while a silver dime would weigh 2.5 grams. So any significant deviation from these specifications could indicate something special. And remember, condition is absolutely critical for value. A 1965 silver error dime that's heavily worn and damaged might still be worth 6 or 7 figures. But one in pristine, uncirculated condition with no marks, spots, or imperfections could be worth those headline-grabbing millions. The grading scale runs from poor, 1, barely identifiable, up through mint state, 70, absolute perfection. And at the highest grades, each single point difference can mean hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in value. The authentication process for suspected high-value 1965 dimes is exhaustive because so much money is at stake. The coin will undergo spectroscopic analysis to precisely determine its metal composition. It will be weighed and measured with laboratory precision to verify it meets specifications for a genuine mint product. It will be examined under high magnification to check for any signs of artificial alteration or counterfeiting, and it will be compared against known genuine specimens and photographic references to confirm all details are correct. If the coin passes all these tests and is deemed authentic, it's then assigned a numerical grade based on its preservation state. And this combination of authenticity confirmation plus precise grading is what establishes the coin's market value. The major grading services, PCGS and NGC, are universally trusted in the numismatic community, and coins certified by these services sell for significant premiums over raw, uncertified coins because buyers have confidence in the accuracy of the attribution and grading. Now let's talk about what you should do if you believe you found a valuable 1965 Roosevelt dime. First, immediately place the coin in a protective holder without touching the surfaces directly with your fingers, because oils and acid from skin contact can cause damage over time. Never attempt to clean the coin using any method, because cleaning almost always reduces value by removing original surface characteristics that collectors and graders look for. Second, photograph the coin clearly from both sides, plus edge views, capturing enough detail that experts can give preliminary opinions about whether you potentially have something special. Third, research your coin online by comparing it to images and descriptions of known error types. The PCGS and NGC websites have extensive photo galleries and variety listings that can help you determine if your coin matches any documented rarities. Fourth, contact reputable coin dealers or the grading services directly to discuss submitting your coin for authentication. Most services offer different levels of service, depending on the declared value and turnaround time you need, and for potentially ultra-valuable coins, they offer special handling and expedited service. And fifth, be prepared for the authentication process to take time. These services receive thousands of submissions, and each coin must be carefully examined by trained experts. So patience is essential, but the wait is worthwhile when you're potentially sitting on a multi-million-dollar treasure. The investment potential of these rare 1965 Roosevelt dimes cannot be overstated. Over the past several decades, the values of the rarest modern era coins have consistently outpaced most traditional investments, appreciating at double-digit annual rates as the collector base has expanded globally and more people have become aware of these numismatic treasures. Unlike stocks that can become worthless if a company fails, or real estate that requires ongoing maintenance and is illiquid, these coins are tangible assets that can be stored securely in a small space, transported easily, sold in a global marketplace, and have demonstrated remarkable stability and growth in value over time. Major collectors and investment funds have increasingly recognized rare coins as a legitimate alternative asset class for portfolio diversification, and the most significant rarities like these 1965 Roosevelt dimes are increasingly seen as store-of-value assets comparable to fine art or classic cars, but with the advantage of much greater portability and market efficiency. So as we wrap up this incredible journey through three of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever produced, I want you to think about the implications of what we've discussed today. There are coins potentially worth tens of millions of dollars that could still be out there in circulation, sitting in change jars, hidden in old collections, or waiting in bank rolls. And the only thing standing between those coins and their discovery is knowledge and awareness. Every single dime you encounter from now on deserves a second look, a careful examination, because you never know when you might be holding that one-in-a-million specimen that could change your life forever. The 1990D at $20 million, the 1973 at $29 million, and especially this incredible 1965 at $37 million. These aren't just coins. They're life-changing opportunities disguised as pocket change. So start checking your coins today. Learn what to look for. Examine everything carefully. And who knows? Maybe you will be the next person to discover one of these legendary treasures and join the ranks of lucky individuals whose lives were transformed by recognizing the extraordinary value hidden in something that everyone else overlooked. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hunter today. If you found this information valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss another video about rare and valuable coins that could be hiding in your pocket right now. Remember, knowledge is power, and now you have the knowledge to potentially discover a fortune. So get out there and start searching. Your $37 million dime might be waiting for you right now.